So this is pretty interesting. So there is an ongoing debate right now about who should be Speaker of the House. Now, Nancy Pelosi, who sucks, big time sucks, is attempting to take back her Speaker spot, despite being, wholly unqualified and just a horrible pick. Now, this debate apparently is raging on in a bunch of places. Now, The View, you guys know The View. It's like the show where they just kind of like have this panel and they all do debating stuff. So they're going to talk of Whoopi Goldberg specifically is really going to be the main one talking about it. I know like some of the other people are going to jump in a little bit too. But the Justice Democrats got mentioned on The View. This is really good because it's making the Justice Democrats more mainstream. It's making them talked about more. It's gaining them more publicity, more public knowledge, and, that's very, very important. So she's going to talk about Nancy Pelosi, and she's going to vilify the Justice Democrats because of their ageism and sexism. Check it out.
Reportedly, some of the newly elected female Democrats are part of a so-called pink wave who are questioning whether Nancy Pelosi should be Speaker of the House. They say, she's too old, she should step aside and let the new folks. So, okay.
Yeah.
If you're going to be the new folks, you also need to do your homework. Let's take it, for example, a Nancy Pelosi or a Dianne Feinstein. Two women battling and still at work, battling their male counterparts on both sides, okay? Nancy Pelosi got most of that Obama bill through. She fought
the Obamacare.
Obamacare.
Right.
She has been on the side of right for most of the time she's been in. The same with Dianne Feinstein, and the same with a whole bunch of these folks who have gotten older. You know what aged them? Fighting for the right to be an American 100%. So if you're going to represent us, because a lot of folks got in and, some of y'all calling yourselves, what was it? It's something crazy. Not crazy, but it really kind of freaked me out. Justice Democrats. So I know, so let me just be really clear, because you kind of, on your site, you kind of take a little punch at people. So my question is this, are you saying that other Democrats who've been fighting for 25, 30 years aren't Justice Democrats? You think that, I don't know, let's name a couple of people who've been fighting. John Conyers, who's not there anymore, and
lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, you need the experience. You need experience to handle all this stuff. And if you don't have it, sit back and learn some stuff and then take over. But you can't come in and pee all over everything and say it's done. You can't do that.
There are a lot of Democrats, 17 Democrats, some incumbents, some coming in. The people are saying she may not even have the votes among her own caucus.
That's okay.
Can I tell you something?
Does she have the votes?
She's got the votes, and she's going to be the next speaker. I frankly think it's healthy to have these type of challenges. I think this is a democratic vote.
Yes.
Nobody's appointed. It's not a monarchy.
But then
Let her earn their support.
But then don't do what you are pissed at other people for doing. Don't be sexist. Don't be ageist.
You mean the Democrats that are coming out against her?
Because these folks have been working their behinds off to make sure of the same things you want to fight for.
But the woman who wants it, one of the women who's challenging her is a 60-something-year-old woman. It's not really about her age.
No, but as I said, if you're reading the Justice Democrats thing, and they're talking about gathering all these people to get rid of the old guard.
Yeah.
Who have not been fighting for the justice. They've been paying money, getting money for the big. It's like, who are you talking about?
Well, she's tough, too. I mean, you need somebody tough like her.
You need somebody.
She's not afraid of the rain like some people.
She knows how to raise money. She knows how to rally votes.
She'll go out in the rain and
I'm just
fight.
saying, I don't mind a healthy fight, but don't make it about because you're old, you can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Or because you're not
Nobody
what
says
I
that
think.
to Mitch McConnell or Chuck
No,
Schumer.
they didn't. Nobody just pooed on them.
I'm
just
still
saying.
for term limits all around, so maybe
Whatever
I
it
can't add
is.
my voice to this conversation.
Well, no, you
I think
can't.
everyone needs to be out at some point.
Everybody should be out, but
Okay, can we
you have
start
to
with the
replace. You have to replace it with an intelligent conversation.
So these were the same smears that were employed by the Hillary wing back in the 2016 primary. And this is basically what they're doing here again, because they can't argue based on policy. And so instead, and this is why, I've made videos where I've just completely disavowed identity politics as a whole. And what I mean by identity politics is when you basically prioritize one identity over something else, despite that the other, person being better. You choose based on the identity, which is the dumbest thing possible. It's irrational. It breeds ridiculousness within the political system. And that's what we're looking at here. I made a video where, funny enough, it was about Dianne Feinstein, where people are like, oh, you guys are just, you're just not supporting her because she's an old woman. Like, you guys are, there's nothing that pisses me off more than Hillbots doing that type of stuff. It's utterly ridiculous. But so she throws the accusation, ageism, dude, ageism. That being thrown is pretty funny. I actually am often a victim of ageism myself, but in the other way, not in the too old way. I'm hit with ageism on the other side. So I guess that issue is becoming more mainstream. But the idea that we don't like them because of their age is ridiculous. The reason why we don't like them is because they're not in touch with the American people anymore. And so what's an example of that? Bernie Sanders is someone who is very old, but we still support him because he's an old person who understands the plight of the average American person, and he represents that way. And so that's the reason why we support Bernie Sanders. That's the reason why we support him, despite his old age. His old age is not some knock. That's not a disqualifier. That's not a negative in the category. It just depends on, hey, do your policy positions line up with, what we agree with? And the answer for people like Dianne Feinstein and Nancy Pelosi, no. Dianne Feinstein, by the way, has been in, I believe, something like over 20 years. And so now she's super centrist. She goes, oh yeah, she disavowed Medicare for all after like a meeting with some big pharma lobbyist. And I was like, you're a disgusting person. Like, that's so disgusting. And she simply doesn't represent us anymore. Now, the most hilarious charge that is thrown is this is the worst one, where it's the sexism charge, where it's like, oh, you don't like her because she's a woman. This is legitimately the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life, and I'll explain to you why. By the way, this is me responding to this in any sort of a serious way gives off the idea that it's a serious claim, to something to take serious, a claim that's to be legitimately examined and debunked. It's really not. This is just a smear, but I'm going to debunk it anyways because it's so dumb and it's so easily debunkable. So, first of all, Nancy Pelosi, we don't oppose Nancy Pelosi. It doesn't have, or we do oppose her. We don't oppose her on the basis of gender or age. That's not the reason why we oppose her. We oppose her because we don't agree with her. It was hilarious. There was that, I saw a video where she was, I believe, doing like some town hall, and someone asked her, I believe, about universal health care, and she goes, every state can have a public option. Like, these are the Democrats we're fighting for. People who are so lazy they just want to say we can get a public option in every state, which would be ridiculously difficult and just very dumb altogether. That wouldn't get anything done. But the point here being is that who is the person that the progressives want in place of Nancy Pelosi? Barbara Lee. Barbara Lee is what? She's a woman, and she's African American. So none of those collide. None of those work in any way. This is the same thing that was going on with Nina Turner as well, by the way. It was a similar thing to that. But here's the craziest thing. All of the 4 Justice Democrats who weren't already incumbents, who were elected to their spots, they're all females. All 4 of the new incoming Justice Democrats, they're all females. And the funniest thing is, remember, I talked about how they made history. The Justice Democrats made history, and I'll explain to you why. So Ilhan Omar is actually the first ever Somali American woman to ever hold congressional office. Remember, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is the youngest woman to ever hold congressional office. And then Rashida Tlaib is the first ever Palestinian woman in Congress. And I don't know how it would go down in the history books, but my understanding of it is both Rashida and Ilhan are both Muslims, so they both fill that category too. So again, I don't want to make it seem like this is a legitimate charge against us. that this smear is a legitimate charge, because it's not. It's a joke. It's a sad, embarrassing joke. But it's so debunkable that it's laughable, because, again, she's really trying hard not to say the Justice Democrats. But what about that name is menacing in and of itself? The Justice Democrats, I mean, presumably she's some sort of a social justice warrior based on what she just said, about, ageism and sexism and nonsense, right? That's in this case. Presumably some sort of social justice warrior. How is the name Justice Democrats in any way menacing? I don't understand. Why are you struggling to say the name? This isn't like some disgusting, abhorrent name. This is a solid name that can only be considered a positive in any way, shape, or form. So, again, I want to repeat that Barbara Lee, who is our preferred Speaker of the House, is both a woman and African American. All of the 4 incoming new Justice Democrats are women. Ayanna Pressley is a woman who's African American. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is also a woman who's, by the way, the youngest woman in all of congressional history. Rashida Tlaib is the first ever Palestinian American to hold congressional office, and Ilhan Omar is the first ever Somali American woman to hold congressional office. So the idea that these charges could even be levied against us when this is the actual truth, where a bunch of these people, and the Our Revolution people as well, I mean, all these people are most of the time actually minorities of some sort. So this is really laughable. And what it goes to show you is Whoopi Goldberg is also really out of touch. I don't think she really knows much about the issues, to be like, when it comes down to the real political brunt of the issues. I don't think she knows too much about them. But Barbara Lee would be far, far preferable to Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi will be horrible. Not only will she be terrible because she sucks at legislating, but she's also someone who will be a gift to the Republicans, because I might be mistaken, but I could have sworn I saw Trump endorse her. That should be enough to step away from Nancy Pelosi, because that we're playing into the right wing's hands if we put Nancy Pelosi back in her speaker position. And she does not stand for the values that the average American has. We just saw Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez protesting inside of her office for a Green New Deal. So people who are more like AOC should be ones in that position, like Barbara Lee, to be Speaker of the House. By the way, Barbara Lee, very progressive, has a solid record. She supports Medicare for all. She's very good on foreign policy as well. So again, this is the most disgusting thing, and there's nothing worse in politics than the identity politics smearing of the Hillary wing. When it's against, when it's an actual smear, like when it's against the real progressive left, because they can no longer argue from a position of policy because they know they're wrong and they're just incorrect. And so they just pivot instead to, you're ageist or you're sexist or whatever. Like, no, all 4 Justice Democrats that are new, who are not already incumbents, are women. They all 3 of 4 made history of some sort. Okay? You don't know what you're talking about, Whoopi Goldberg. You're obviously out of touch, just like Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein are. And it's quite embarrassing to watch, to be quite frank with you.